What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fraud Friday. We'll give a couple seconds for people to hop in. As always, we're pretty fully loaded, so I got a couple friends with me today, and we'll wait a couple seconds for people to start kind of coming on in. All right. Um, I don't know about all of you, but you may have heard a thing or two about this thing called AI. And I got a lot of questions of like really about what I should be doing with it, how I should be thinking about, but most importantly, should we be doing things like this? And who do I go to? I go to my two trusted friends that I brought along today, our CTO at Dodgeball, Andrew Schwartz, and our application architect, Nathan. So I got a couple friends today. They're going to help me kind of answer a lot of these questions that I think a lot of us share, the commonalities as we're building out our prod programs, understanding the different types of risks that we're seeing, and then honestly, like, what can I actually do today? So, Andrew, Nathan, I appreciate you guys hopping on today, really kind of helping us answer some of these questions. I know we want our people listening right now and the people who will be listening to this on demand kind of come out with an understanding of like, what is Gen AI and how can it approximate human in the loop decisions? How do I work with it? Where can I leverage it? Really kind of ultimately this whole bit of I need to build an AI strategy. A lot of people are talking about this. What can I do? What I guess like Nathan, you and I have a lot of these conversations, so it's pretty cool to bring people kind of like behind the scenes of some of the things that you're thinking of. Can you kind of help me explain like what do you have now? Like, what are you thinking about? What would be kind of your dream of how the human side starts to work with the AI aspects of it?
Yeah. So, can you hear me, Brian?
I got you good.
Awesome. Cool. So, I think it is good to start, like you said, with the dream. I think that really what we're talking about here is we have a technology that is changing the world. Like, that's just true. And I think the dream is imagining that you can handle trust and safety as if you could take yourself, like this fraud expert, and you can just be sitting along there, right there with the customer, making sure that your good customers have the best possible experience, making intelligent decisions based on everything you know about that customer's history, and that the bad customers can't steal from you. And I think that right now that's impossible because like there just aren't a billion of you guys. But you guys have that knowledge in your brain. And I think that what is really exciting is this dream, this world where we can approximate using Gen AI a fully human in the loop anti-fraud like orchestration system that is able to do something that could not be done due to just scale in the past. And I think that's the dream. These things can leverage data, internal customer history, all of the things that you would ever have in your million, Google Chrome tabs, and be making pretty good readings off of this right off the bat. And so then I think we actually can dive into at some point here, probably very soon, the hard like things that we've actually built towards the stream. But I do want to kind of hear from Andrew, kind of what you think about that as well.
Yeah, I would actually say it a little differently because like I come from more a finance background and I think like the real goal is to use everything to make more money and cut costs. And if you think about it, these are all compatible because if you have a capability of having a human in the loop, then you can um, get people upsold to buy more stuff and you can cut off bad actors faster. But at the same time, it's also important that having the AI capabilities allows you to leverage the old school machine learning that really actually has the real knowledge of the people. And it makes it possible not just to act like you've got a human in the loop to monitor your users, but like you've got a paid data scientist in the loop to actually give you like the best analytic system to cut off fraud using that hardcore old school data.
Mm-hmm. And potentially even if you have some sort of a system helping you orchestrate a bunch of other like integrations, you've also got a bunch of engineers in the loop who are like live deciding, oh, like let's implement this service because I think that would be really really helpful in order to address this particular example of something that's going on.
Yeah, and so like personally, I think that the real benefit is the combination of having something resembling a person in the loop, just monitoring every action someone engages in, but also being able to mix and match the use of old school systems like SIFT, at data, deduce, put in MFA where you want to, really go all the way up and do an IDV where you need to. And basically mix and match all of these things as if you actually had like a team of paid data scientists.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would always be the dream for me of like I never really had the engineering aspects for most steps along my career. Analytics, again, is kind of almost like the same person. Can you do this for me? Can you do that? And obviously, yeah, Nathan, the dream for me is just 10, 20 X Brian's. And then I know what I think. I know how I think about it. So I'm already the voice in my own head anyway. So like, I'm having those battles on the day to day anyway. Andrew, will probably make your eye twitch with this one as you're kind of talking. I'm like, hey, there's vibe coding, there's vibe marketing. What is it going to be now? Vibe investigating, vibe frauding. Like, I don't really know exactly what this whole category really will be. I don't really know. We don't need really name claim that. Someone else can have that. But as I think about that, like it is wonderful to get to an army of Bryans at some point. But what can I actually do today? A lot of the things that I think about, like when I'm building out, I like my career basically phase one is I build broad teams from 0 to 1. So I come in, evergreen landscape. There's a lot to do. So I got to start somewhere. As I'm thinking about today, like where we're actually at today with AI and what I can leverage it, like how are you thinking about what I can actually do today? Maybe not necessarily a dream. These
Mm-hmm.
steps today are the foundational pieces, the pieces that become legacy, the way we've always done it here in a couple years. Wow, I think what a couple years will be like for AI, but where we're at today. Let's kind of forget about the dream. What can I actually do today? How should I actually be thinking about this today? And where should I actually be doing this? And I'll say, like, with a little bit of caveat, like, I will challenge you guys as you guys kind of thinking about this in a short little bit of like, how can I trust this? We'll have
Mm-hmm.
some guardrails in a second. We'll not cover that
Yep.
yet, but where should I be thinking about that? How should I be thinking about AI today?
Yeah. So actually, let me just say, I do actually want to say still one thing about a year in the future. And that is, we Dodgeball are really an orchestration company, which means we help our customers combine a variety of different hardcore systems in order to reduce fraud. The 1 year vision is that combination will happen automatically. You, the trust and safety manager or team, won't need to put together what we call dodgeball checkpoints. They'll just come out straight from the AI. But stepping back, we've been taking steps in that direction. And actually, the one I really want to call out that I think is really nice is actually Nathan's favorite second opinion decision block. Maybe you want to talk about what that is, Nathan?
Yeah. So I'll pull up the blocks that we have live in production right now in the orchestration, and then I'll just show those for now. We'll start with that. Let me see if I can figure out this screen sharing here. Share screen. Everything's a little bit different. Let's go with that. I think this should be sharing. Yeah, this is the Checkpoint Studio. So I'm on a local environment because I'm an engineer and that's just what I'm always logged into. But these blocks that you're seeing right here, this allow with second opinion, deny with second opinion, and the intelligent labeler, these are all live in production. So you can use these literally today. And these add a lot of capabilities right off the bat that are going to be very useful for starting to safely get AI into your orchestration. So what are these? I'll start by talking really quickly about the allow and deny with second opinion. So let's imagine that you have some workflow. You've got some sort of a branch that ends up down here. And normally you think you need to allow this thing, but maybe there's like a little bit of like, you don't have to allow it, but you're pretty sure it should be allowed. What we allow for you to do is put this block, this allow a second opinion, into that where you would normally be putting just a hard allow. You can use either of these, but this one, it has an option if you enable the agent to change a decision to actually override the allow based on some sort of a custom message that you give it or some sort of instructions. So Andrew, you have a couple examples of these things. Do you want to talk about an example of how you could,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So let
how
me
you
actually
could
just
use this to actually,
share my screen
yep.
for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And cool. So I have my favorite customer, Gerard Turcotte. And Gerard Turcotte is somebody who, like on the surface, looks, it's got a fine name, fine location, shows up only in 2 places. Um, and this is actually an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
So the name is Gerard Turcotte, but notice the email. It's actually unrelated to the name.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew plus Gerard Turcotte 34. What that actually means is that it's me with him as a side piece.
Yeah, and so can you explain really quickly, just, I think most fraud people know this pattern with the plus, but
Yeah,
if this email is actually sent, it's going to go to andrew@dodgeball.com. But it's kind of weird. He has this person's name in there with the plus, and the plus is just kind of like an extra little thing. And that actually is pretty suspicious if you look at it, but you might not have a rule configured to catch it.
exactly. So, and by the way, this is actually like where a lot of the Gen AI stuff comes in. It's not that it has any more knowledge than any other system, but they've been configured and trained to have good background understanding of the world, and in particular to have something resembling almost common sense. And so here it's smart. The Gen AI system is smart enough to know that the email goes to andrew@dodgeballhq.com, and the Gerard Turcotte is not actually matching. If anything, it's actually suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a checkpoint that we went through with this person. And the thing, I'm just going to show our little browser on the checkpoint. So here, we're just down our UI to the system of tests. We went through, by the way, so here we did also a Gen AI step to come up with labels. But basically, we evaluated SIFT and came up with, a not terrible score.
It's actually a pretty good
Okay,
score, but I
yeah,
think we were trying to make it so that it would
yeah, exactly.
trigger a certain path in this testing.
Yeah. Well, it's actually even stronger because really what's
Yeah.
going on here
Yeah.
is the information that came in was not enough to make SIFT think this is suspicious. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is because they're using the hardcore traditional machine learning
Mhm.
that doesn't adapt well to just strange little things on the side. And then we toss it through at data, which is one of our favorite combinations of SIFT plus at data. And we come up with actually a pretty high risk score. Um, but probably actually just a reflection of the fact that we were using VPNs when we did this. But now let's actually go to the allow a second opinion. So we got through our test. With the way it's configured, we said it should allow this usage. And then, but we, instead of just us following the rule and saying we're going to allow it, we asked the AI agent to review and decide whether it should had enough reason to override our suggestion.
Mhm.
And in fact, here what it did was it took a final decision of denial with high confidence and gave good reasoning. What
Mhm.
it says is there's a strong historical inconsistency between the customer identity and the payment billing information, and clear evidence of risky behavior and high third party risk scores. And then in greater details, it goes over, we made this a little obvious by giving the name John Doe. Again, this is actually one of the big advantages of Gen AI systems. Gen AI systems automatically know that John Doe is an anonymous username.
Mhm.
And whereas like a classical system might not be trained with that. And so it explains basically that the inconsistency between the name Gerard Turcotte and John Doe, plus other suspicions and the fact that at some point in the past, um, the MFA went through, but that really just validates that the person has a phone in this case, not that
Mhm.
we actually trust the phone. On and on like that, leading to the final decision that it is um, suggesting a deny with high confidence.
Yep.
And we can actually show other variants where in this type of situation it would allow with high confidence. So
Mhm.
it's not that it's biased one way or the other, but really it's a way of getting to an almost human level understanding of
Mhm.
the underlying risks.
Yep. It's like saying it's like saying to Brian, we would normally allow this thing, but like, could you take one quick look at it? Like, Brian, do you think that that's a reasonable, a reasonable kind of like way of thinking about what this is doing?
Yeah, there's one step along the way. We'd call it double eye checks.
Mhm.
So it would be we have our own escalation path for people who are handling double eye checks, and that's kind of ultimately what it's here, but
Mhm.
able to do it a little more so at scale and really leveraging the brain power and the patterns of all these different data sources that take me some time and just again leverage the output. I think about how can I multiply my brain power in what I do know and kind of help speed up everything. And a lot of these kind of ultimately, I've been talking a lot about like Lean Six Sigma principles. There's one methodology, 5S, of like being able to find everything you need in order to do something within 30 seconds. Part of that is within like maintenance manufacturing, but it still follows a lot of investigation aspects of it of what is that information I need to either approve something competently that we're considering rejecting and have that paper trail and reasoning, or on the other end, how do I know I have enough information to ultimately come to a decision to reject something and having that paper trail there? This helps a lot with that reasoning and logic with all of that. But there is this other aspect to it of like, this is totally awesome, but it's also a little bit scary. And if I'm the one running the program and this
Mhm.
goes rogue and kind of goes off on a power trip and making decisions out of nowhere, like, am I going to be fired for this? Like, it's sometimes as simple as that of like, how do I actually put the controls in place? How do I actually mitigate that risk? Now that opens up a new type of risk that now I'm
Mhm.
responsible for. And I want to make sure, like, all right, I'm going to just kind of put it simply. How do I guarantee nothing stupid happens?
Well, this is super, super, super important if you're ever going to deploy this kind of thing in production. I mean, I think that's very, very obvious, and probably everyone here is just like nodding their heads. I would think. So we, Andrew and I have a sort of philosophy that like everybody kind of wants to wrap things in AI, but then sometimes they miss probably the most important part, which is like at the end of the day, like you can have as many layers of like wrapping something in AI, wrapping that in something, wrapping that in AI. But at that top level, at the very, very top, you have to have AI wrapped in something. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up to something very, very dangerous. And that's something that you're wrapping it in better be a hardcore yes or no. Let me get some control over this aspect. And so, Brian, if you want to bring up my screen, I can show some of those controls that we have in the allow. Yeah, so perfect. So you'll notice this block. This block right here is the allow agent to change decision. And I think that this is really critical because where you're talking about, Brian, if you don't allow the agent to change the decision, this is always going to be an allow. If you don't allow the agent to change this decision, it is always going to be a deny. And in that case, it really does function exactly like you were saying, like a second eye. It's like it's going to tell me what it would do, but it's not going to change anything. And then I could go and look at what it told me to do, and I can be like, oh wow, like that makes a lot of sense. But I actually have to push the button, so it's like fully human in the loop there.
Yeah.
Now,
And actually, if I could just add at this point,
yeah,
it's also possible that you could use this in order to wrap the system in such a way that, for example, if you get to a deny,
mm-hmm.
like you're really like you think you want to deny, but you're not entirely confident. What you could actually do is deny and then feed it into a what we call an intelligent labeler,
Mm-hmm.
something that would see if there might possibly be some overriding decision afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
not to reverse, but maybe to create a case and tell you to go back and look at this.
Yep.
And you could even soften
There's
this
it.
by denying and giving a custom message that you then use in your software to say something like, we need to investigate this a little bit, come back to us later, and then in the meantime, pass it over, for example, to Zendesk or send yourself an email or whatever. Give yourself 15 minutes to look over in detail, make a final decision, let them move on.
Yeah. So
I
basically
love
what
it.
you could do is you have some label here that's like, I need to take a look at this. And then you could create a decision that's like, need to look. don't need to look.
Yeah.
And then each of these can have different things that are happening.
Nathan, I want to actually ask you a question specifically because you and I work a lot on like fraud strategy of like the vision plus the execution. We do a lot of work there. Like, how are you specifically actually leveraging a lot of this as you're understanding different risk surface areas and kind of giving the full understanding of like, hey, what really, how should we prioritize what we protect and how do we work this all together? How are you specifically using AI to help yourself like understand different types of attacks and how to actually put a little bit of coverage in place?
Yeah, so one of the things that we always talk about is like your first workflow can just allow something and you're at least going to be getting some information flowing. Well, another very interesting first workflow is to allow with second opinion and don't allow the agent to change the decision. You're going to get an AI's opinion on every decision that you would ever be making, and you can get some really interesting text about like what is going into its decision making process, and you can look through those, and then you can start to be like, okay, yeah, like pretty much like most of these things are getting allowed or it's recommending to allow it, but like here's some interesting ones where it's recommending to deny it. And you know, what's in common between these? Heck, you could run those through a Gen AI service to like try and figure out what the common patterns are in there, and then you can start thinking, oh, okay, you know, I want to add these services in. And you know, it's also kind of interesting because like this is also in the back of our heads, like how could we make that process automatic for you guys so that again, you're the person who's clicking the button of allow the agent to change the decision. You're the person who's clicking the button of what services is it allowed to use if it thinks it needs them. What services, you know, what is one of my favorite ones is like if you go into the advanced options on these, you can describe the impact of an allow or deny. So maybe like on your website, you have it so that an allow is like you go through and you make the purchase, but a deny is actually like they're blocked from your website forever and they're totally screwed and there's no recourse. Like that's going to feed into whether or not that agent has high confidence that it should be a deny. Because if it was instead, actually, it'll still look like their payment went through, but like eventually they're going to get an email from someone on our team who's going to be reaching out to them like, hey, we see something fraudulent. That's way lower impact on your customers, and it absolutely needs to be fed in. You know, by default, it's going to say, you know, something to the effect of, this is allowed to continue. This is not allowed to continue, which, you know, it might make some assumptions about. But I think that there's so much knowledge that people have about how their systems work and what they want them to do. And it's like, how do you just like, what's the easiest way to align those things, which are always changing, to actually literally what's being experienced? And I think
this goes into a good question that was asked.
Yeah.
Andrew, I think I want you to answer this one.
Yeah.
Obviously I have opinions. I talk a lot about human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, but the question is asked, and this is a little bit about measurement and impact of AI. How do you gain efficiency if you add AI steps to human-controlled workflows? As usually, for a case not so complicated, humans can make a quick and pretty accurate decision. Andrew.
Yeah. So basically, what I would say is anytime you involve a human, you're operating at human speeds. And so you're disconnecting someone and you're effectively taking a decision to slow down an interaction. Whereas if you're doing it through an AI system, you can, at the very least, speed up the interaction and maybe ideally do it in background while the user does something else. So they don't even know that you're considering rejecting them for something. And there's actually, one other, there's an idiom that actually might feed into, Nathan, could you bring up the intelligent labeler?
Yeah. Let's see, Brian, can you pop my...
Yeah. So there are a few different idioms we're adopting that allow us to get basically a lot more value as soon as we switch over to the AI systems.
Mhm.
And one of the phrases we use is getting value from the gray zone.
Mhm.
If all you have is hard-coded rules with classical machine learning system, you have a fair amount of money you just have to reject because it appears too risky.
Mhm.
What we're doing is making our rules actually looser. So
Mhm.
whereas in the past you might have off the bat rejected 3% of sales to prevent 1.5% of chargeback, what
And
we're
can I
trying to
say maybe
go
not
ahead, please.
looser, but more flexible? I think that's a key difference. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And what I'm really thinking about is in a case where you would in the past have rejected 3% of sales to block 1.5% of chargeback, what we want to do is outright reject 1% of sales
Mhm.
and run 2 to 3% through an AI system that is going to do a second opinion and combine different pieces of information
Mhm.
with the goal of getting down to like a 2% overall rejection rate.
Yep.
Maybe your chargeback rate goes up just a little bit, like 0.1%, but basically by doing something like that, you are approximating a system where you get an extra 1% of sales that you wouldn't have had you brought humans in the loop.
Mhm.
Nathan, maybe you want to talk about the intelligent labeler in that context?
Yeah, yeah. So let me think here. So I think that like there's one thing that you said there, which is maybe it's like talking about like the very specific percentages. And I think that there even is a little bit of a finger that you have on those percentages, which is these confidence thresholds too. Like if you want there to be more things getting through or less things getting through, you can require a higher or lower confidence threshold. And for example, like say that you say that this is something that would be rejected by um, just a score based approach, then is the score from some service too high? Look at blah 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 blah. Think about what this is, whatever. Like these rules. Like it's human. You can now write your rules in English. You probably have a document that you might even be following on some of these things. Heck, some of you might even have written that document, and you can put that into here. And it's almost like you're teaching like an employee of yours how to decide, like what do you do when you decide if that score is too high and you actually want to let
You
something
remind me, there was also the case that I really like. So we've been doing various tests of these
Mm-hmm.
systems, and sometimes coming up with slightly artificial scenarios.
Yeah.
But there's one that I really like, and that was we'd put a hard coded rule that if someone failed to log in 12 times,
Yeah, I
right, so
remember
they
that
gave
one.
12 wrong passwords.
Yeah.
Block them.
Mhm.
And like there are all these systems, like I mean I constantly forget my password to get blocked for 15 minutes off of, or 30 minutes when I'm trying to like trade some stocks just before 4 p.m. It's really annoying. And instead what the Gen AI system did off the bat, so Nathan at a certain point did fail to log in a large number of times, and then we went through the intelligent deny because he should have been denied by a hard-coded rule that said he had failed to log in 12 times. It actually allowed him in because it was smart enough to notice that number one, it was always from the same IP address, and that IP address was his home.
And it was my consistent home that I've always used in the past. And there was like a human level of gap between each of these failed login attempts. It wasn't like some robot going, a bazillion all on like VPNs and, different things like that. And it was actually really funny because when I first tested this, I was like expecting it to deny because I was like, oh yeah, 10 logins, that's bad. And it allowed me, and I was like, oh, it's not working. And then I went through it. I was like, oh, actually, no, that does make a ton of sense. Actually, now that you're like showing me.
And I think this is like the really interesting thing, even before we get fully done with automating everything, that just by adding this little bit of Gen AI in the loop, you can soften your rules.
Yep.
without and basically address a lot of scenarios that you might never have even thought about automatically by virtue of how these systems have been trained.
Yeah.
And that can actually correspond to a lot of money. I find that personally kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate you too. We are up at time today. I am still giving homework. I know I don't have my homework slide today, but I give homework at the end of every one of these because I want everyone thinking about something after leaving today. So I want you to go back and I want you to think about where is one spot, just one. Let's just start with one. Obviously, we could have a million ideas. Let's start with one spot where you could leverage AI to do something with it. Could it be bringing together different data points? Could it be understanding your surface area? Could it be making faster decisions? Could it be pattern recognition? There's lots of different scenarios of just kind of be like, why do I really do it this way? Or I wish Alice keeps pinging on me. If you kind of look at my thing, she's dropped me a ton of awesome ideas about like, hey, just think about these would be great projects. I just wish I had time here. Start somewhere, find a good idea. That's how you build the momentum of actually understanding what can I really do with this. You don't have to solve everything, but you have to start somewhere. So let's find a spot where we can start today. I appreciate you, Andrew. Thank you, Nathan. I think let's do this again. I think there's a whole lot more we can talk about.
Yep.
Thank you
Awesome.
all.
Yep. Thank you.